Hello and welcome back to the DeCesare Group Podcast. I'm Jim DeCesare. Thank you for joining us this week. Hey, we've got a great guest for you. It's Mike Duramo, CEO of Graves Gilbert Clinic. Dr. Duramo has been active in healthcare and physician practice management for more than 30 years. His background has included executive leadership positions in large hospital systems, health and medical liability risk retention, medical group and MSO operations, physician and insurance cooperatives, and collaboratives. Graves Gilbert Clinic dates back to 1937, and today the clinic houses 200 providers across 30 medical specialties in 26 locations across Bowling Green and surrounding counties. Mike is responsible for the strategic direction of Graves Gilbert Clinic and oversees the function and performance of a 10-member executive management team. He also leads the dialogue and relationship management with area hospitals and other strategic partners. Here's my conversation with Mike Duramo. Mike, thanks for being on the DeCesare Group Podcast. I like your last name, too. It's a good Irish name, right?
Jim, we need more Italians in this marketplace.
Yeah.
So.
Now, how do you actually say it?
Well, if you're locally, it's Mike Duramo with long A. If you get off the plane in Rome, it's Michele Duramo.
Yeah, like DeCesare.
That's right. So, beautiful name, by the way.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks for being on the podcast, and welcome to Bowling Green. So, how long have you been on the job, and do you like it here?
Love it here. Been here since, October 15th.
Okay, so you're coming. Yeah. You're not far from a year.
No, it's approaching. It's approaching. It's been a wonderful transition. It was not something I had expected 18 months ago, but here we are.
Well, it's funny how life throws you curves at times, and one day you're here, and the next day you're doing something totally different.
Incredible that way.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? How did you get into healthcare administration and all that fun stuff?
Coincidentally, born in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Okay. The other Bowling Green.
The other Bowling Green, the younger Bowling Green.
Yeah,
apparently.
there you go.
Didn't know there was a history of Bowling Green, Kentucky resident apparently inheriting some farmland up there and then renamed it Bowling Green after his hometown. So,
well, of course.
I learned that recently. But born in Bowling Green, Ohio. Mom and dad were married housing at Bowling Green State University. Dad played football at BGSU.
Is that the Falcons?
That's the Falcons.
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, and he played for the late great Dwight Perry, one of the.
That's before my time.
Oh yeah. Well, for us football buffs, he was a god in his time. But anyhow, so I'm an Ohio boy and lived most of my adult life in Ohio, predominantly Columbus, a few years in the Toledo area. But Dad was a Gen Corp exec, so we moved from Ohio to northern Indiana. Grew up there as a young kid. Became a IU basketball fan while I was there.
Man, we're gonna have to get you therapy before it's all said and done.
I know, but I do know my Kentucky Colonels because I was an Indiana Pacers fan back in the day.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, so we can talk about Artis Gilmore all day long.
Okay, perfect.
And moved to West Michigan and high school up there, and then played college football at Central Michigan.
All right, we played them in a bowl game not too long, less than 10 years ago.
I think it was the Motor City Bowl.
It was, and it snowed.
And it was 2013 in Pontiac, Michigan, if memory serves me. Yeah. But, how'd that game turn out?
It snowed.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a bus from WKU that went up there. They left the day before. Because of all the snow, they got there. They actually pulled up in front of the stadium at kickoff.
Oh, gosh.
And went straight in.
Yeah, you probably needed to hire some northern Michigander to drive that bus.
Yeah. So I don't know who it was, but anyhow, I do remember the bowl game.
So we're kind of full circle. Went from Central Michigan to get a degree in biology, biophysics at Wayne State. So kind of doubling down on my education. Mm-hmm. And while I was going through that round, got a job at Henry Ford Hospital.
Okay.
And first job was I was a kind of part-time research tech. I thought, I'll go on to graduate school and be a PhD in biophysics, and I went down that path. I finished with a science degree and then started some graduate work. And about 3-4 years into it, one of the executives at Henry Ford came to me and said, I'll never forget this. He goes, Mike, you seem to be much better at managing research than actually doing research. and so I took a different path. And,
you took the hint.
Took the hint, yeah, and he was right. I did enjoy the business and operations piece of it more than the pure science.
Yeah.
And so discontinued that graduate work and then went back to school to get my business acumen. And they helped facilitate that. Henry Ford gave me a 10-year career. It was a great place for a young guy to cut his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Detroit when it was probably not as appealing as it is today.
Right.
Living downtown was not a favorable thing.
Got you.
Today, fast forward, 40 years later, living downtown Detroit's great.
Yeah.
But back then it was, it was a little rougher. Mm-hmm. So worked at Henry Ford and then had an opportunity to do some, I had created a product while I was Henry Ford. It was called the DocuScan product. And a group out of Minneapolis hired me to kind of be their product development. And so I spent almost 3 years working for NCS in Minneapolis. And then got an opportunity in Columbus, Ohio, which had no problem moving from Detroit area to Columbus.
Right.
My parents had grown up just north of Columbus at that time, Marion, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And so we packed up, moved our little kids to Columbus with very little knowledge of what we were getting into, and it was a great 20 years. We hit Columbus right when it was starting its growth phase.
Nice.
Grew up a Buckeyes fan. Sorry about that. But
we took a thumping last year, but we got paid.
And I again, college football fan. I scrutinized that Hilltoppers team. They looked strong. They had speed. They had size. I just think that game was a little out of whack for them.
Yeah. Like I said, we got paid.
Yeah. Well,
so what did you do in Columbus?
I was the CEO of a company called Matern, Ohio. 12 doctors wanted me to form like a larger group. Mm-hmm. So we got together as a group of 12 plus me. And the goal was to try and organize all of the solo practices and small practices in the community. And over about a 10-year time frame from, 95 to 2005, they grew to... they grew to almost 110 physicians. Now, it was an interesting model because we started off like a farmer's co-op.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to ask Jim to be my partner, but we certainly can go in and do purchasing together, get insurance at a better price, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
And
there's power in numbers.
Power in numbers, but it was arm's length.
Yeah.
And so over time, the doctors began to realize, well, gosh, if I become Dr. DeCesare's partner, I can now go to the insurance companies and negotiate better rates, or I can create more efficiencies in my office operations. And that was all true, and it all bore out. And again, great opportunity for these physicians to organize and become more prominent. Mm-hmm. So lo and behold, that group is now called Avita. And they are quite prominent in Columbus, Ohio, 25 years later. So they're doing real well for themselves.
And obviously you have all the insurance companies there, so you can work with them directly.
And they were all OBGYN. So, it's not like you can avoid these doctors, right?
Yeah, that's right. So what happened after Columbus?
That kind of got me back down to this market. A friend of mine I had met over the years said, hey, I'm looking for more executives to join our consulting team. He was in Nashville at the time. It was a company called Southwind. Mm-hmm. And so Southwind was going through a process of being acquired by a national consulting firm out of Washington, D.C. He said, hey, I've got to have the talent now. Would you consider working for me? You can stay in Columbus, but we hub out of Nashville and we report to Washington. And so, I after 20 years of managing physicians, I thought my skills were getting a little rusty, and it was true. You do the same thing for 10 years, you realize how much you've missed.
Yeah.
And so they threw us to the wolves. Here's all the changes going on in healthcare. The Affordable Care Act came out, otherwise known as Obamacare.
Right.
Was all coming about. Hospital dynamics were changing, and it was a good time to get out there and get your head beaten around a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going off script just a little bit because you've been around, you've been doing this for a long time. Do you see any differences with how insurance companies, Medicaid, Medicare work in Kentucky versus other states? Are we on par with everybody else, or is it a little out of whack?
Every state has its nuances, and every community within a state has its nuances. So how South Central Kentucky goes about things and engages insurance, it might be different than, let's say, Louisville.
Right.
So the answer is there's some similarities but differences. Okay. We have a much larger Medicaid population here in South Central Kentucky, about double what I'm used to, which is fine because Kentucky has mechanisms to support that population. The real question is, how do we improve our access to a Medicaid beneficiary?
Yeah.
So those are things that we're going through at Graves Gilbert is all right, how do I have a growing patient base, how do I make it easier for them to see me and take care of them, and then make it a financially viable transaction.
Sure.
So we're getting smart, we're getting creative, and we have some great doctor leaders that are figuring it out.
Talk about the 85 years of care that Graves Gilbert has provided. It's all over the website with the health walks and the other exciting things that are happening to commemorate the long history of Graves Gilbert Clinic. Yeah. But 85 years is quite a testament to providing care for the people of this region. So tell us a little bit about what's cooking.
It's a heck of a history, right? I mean, as you said, 85 years is no small feat. And I think what Graves Gilbert has done to make that a robust 85 years is they've learned to adapt. Sometimes these groups, and they're still out there, start up, 3 surgeons get in a room or 3 primary cares get in a room, and they call it a clinic, and next thing you know, it's 10, then 20, then 50. Graves Gilbert has learned that, hey, as markets change, as patient needs change, we need to adapt to that over 85 years. So as more emphasis was on primary care or women's health, Graves Gilbert did focus on bringing those what we're called primary care services. Pediatrics is very strong at Graves Gilbert. And again, we have a very strong pediatrics group as well. So that wasn't them 30 years ago, right? It had to evolve from 2 OBGYNs to 10,
right?
From a handful of primary cares to 2025, and I think that was a sense of you had some physician leadership, you had executive leadership that said, hey, winds are changing, and if we don't adapt, we won't see 86. So.
That's awesome. So, and at least you're planning for 95 right now.
That's right.
And that's a good thing. Is there anything you would like our listeners and now our viewers to know that I haven't asked? We have a kind of a new mantra, and it's really not new to healthcare, but it may be new to us. Where Graves Gilbert wants to take its messaging and be sincere in it is our quality, access, value, and consistency. So as you see our behaviors in the marketplace, it's really those four pillars. Okay.
And it's not easy, right? I mean, and especially access.
Right.
We have some wonderful doctors, but I live in an area where there are a lot of Medicare beneficiaries. And what I love about interacting with a traditional Medicare beneficiary is they have no problem telling you what's wrong with your institution.
Of course not.
And they'll say, it took me 3 weeks to get, it took me 6 months to get, and you know what? You can't buy that kind of marketing, right?
Right.
And so if I'm going to sit here and say, we're going to be more accessible, we're going to be higher value, lower cost, we darn well better mean it.
Yeah.
And so as we put our programs together and bring our talent together, that's the focal point. So it's not just lip service,
And you have your focus group out there telling you your free focus group.
That's right. That's right. They'll walk down the street. They will find me in the yard, and they will make sure I hear what they're saying.
Well, that's good to hear that you're getting to know your neighbors too.
Oh, absolutely.
And you told me where you live, and that's a great part of Bowling Green, and we're very excited to have you here. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and talk with you, and of course meeting you the few times before, and we're definitely going to have you back again. But thanks for being on the DeCesare Group Podcast. Thanks again to Mike DeRamo, CEO of Graves Gilbert Clinic, for joining us on this week's episode of the DeCesare Group Podcast, and thank you for listening. Hey, if you like what you hear, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a review and share your feedback with us. You can also follow the DeCesare Group across all of our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. And of course, the podcast is a companion to our newsletter, Soki Economic Development and Business News. If you'd like to subscribe, go to our website, thedecesaregroup.com. It'll hit your inbox every Monday morning. The DeCesare Group Podcast is produced by the DeCesare Group, a full-service public relations and consulting company in South Central Kentucky. Our engineer is Doctor of Audio, Justin DeCesare, with content contributions from Burke Mattingly and Amy DeCesare. I'm Jim DeCesare, and join us again next time for the DeCesare Group Podcast.